I just ran across this article that states R. Kelly hastily flew his pregnant 15-year-old girlfriend, Aaliyah, to Chicago on a late night flight, paid a government worker $500 for a photo ID, and an old friend claimed she worked with him at FedEx in the accused pedophile's hurried plot to obtain their marriage license, a new book reveals. The revelation comes after Kelly, now aged 52, was charged with bribery over allegedly paying off a government employee to illegally obtain a photo ID for 15-year-old Aaliyah. Kelly pleads not guilty. The alleged bribe was paid the day before the two obtained an Illinois marriage license on August 31st, 1994, which falsely listed the R&B singer's age as 18. Illinois' marriage age requirements are set at 18 and 16 for those with parental consent. In a new book titled A Case for Murder, Aaliyah Files, author Brian Kirk James Hammett sheds light on the night Kelly, then 27 years old, pulled off the stunt with a nervous Aaliyah in tow. It reveals how the alleged bribe was just $500 and the government worker was with a Chicago city agency. As Kelly put together three forms of ID for Aaliyah to obtain the marriage license, he had his former assistant, Demetrius Smith, talk to a friend who worked at Chicago's public aid office and was charged and that was in charge of taking photos for IDs when people were approved to receive welfare. She agreed to fast track Aaliyah's false photo ID for $500, according to the book. And Kelly himself called up an old friend who worked at FedEx and convinced him to lie and say Aaliyah worked with him, Hammett writes. Lord have mercy. Hammett writes, with all three forms of ID complete, with the inclusion of Aaliyah's school ID card, the couple, as required, appeared before the Cook County clerk at City Hall to present their identification. They didn't have to wait long before obtaining their marriage license, in which they played the waiting game. Kelly made a final call to an associate whose father was an inner city preacher. After catching up on How's the Family, Kelly cut to the chase, asking if the associate's father could perform his and Aaliyah's marriage ceremony. The marriage was finalized before the sun had set. Aaliyah's parents managed to have the marriage annulled in 1995. It was her only marriage before she died in a plane accident at age 22 in 2001. Hammett spoke to several people who were members of Kelly's inner circle. That's how he got the information. Throughout the years, writing, his account described Aaliyah as a sheltered, naive child who experienced independence for the first time while working on Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, finding maturity overnight and seducing Kelly during their first recording session. I told y'all, these girls ain't innocent. Even Aaliyah wasn't innocent. In March Kelly's ex-girlfriend, Lisa Van Allen, claimed Kelly only married the 15-year-old because she was pregnant with his child, going on to state the marriage was annulled as soon as Aaliyah got an abortion. Y'all, Lisa Van Allen ain't got no business speaking on nobody because she had a threesome with R. Kelly and the PP girl. She was 18 years old when she slept with R. Kelly in that threesome with Rashonda Lanford, the PP girl. So she ain't gonna be speaking on nobody. Lisa Van Allen claimed the two only wed to protect Kelly from prosecution if it was revealed she was pregnant. However, it is highly unlikely that an unlawful wedding to a minor would protect Kelly from statutory rape charges, making the scam all more bizarre. Hammond writes that due to Aaliyah's pregnancy, Kelly's team began making calls to lawyers to find out the best way to avoid any jail time, which resulted in the harebrained scheme that Kelly's only option was to marry Aaliyah. Do y'all see the pattern? Do y'all see how far these people went to protect him and to enable him? This is crazy. The team was flown on a late night flight to Chicago from Detroit, where she was living with her parents, then picked up and taken to a hotel room where she waited for Kelly. She greeted Kelly and his entourage at the hotel door. These ads popping up. She greeted Kelly and his entourage at the hotel door with haste on their arrival, Hammett writes. She was pale and nervous, but she obeyed Kelly's rule that required her to wear baggy clothing when she was not with him, unless otherwise instructed. As they entered the room, Aaliyah made sure not to prolong her glance at the other males accompanying Kelly. Instead, she remained with her head down, coldly glancing only in Kelly's direction when spoken to. We've heard this before. We're hearing this now. R. Kelly has been doing this for years. The next morning, Kelly and his entourage went into the office of his business manager, Daryl McDavid, who was the first to suggest that Kelly marry Aaliyah, the book claims. Enablers. Lock all of them up and throw the key away. McDavid began the meeting by pointing out that Kelly had committed a felony. These people know that they were wrong, and they tried to cover up the felonies. This is a felony. McDavid began the meeting by pointing out that Kelly had committed a felony offense knowingly, and to avoid repercussions, they would need Aaliyah to take the rap for the entire sticky situation, Hammett writes. As the meeting reached its final minutes, McDavid specified what ID was required to move forward. While Cook County wasn't known for being very strict with legal requirements, There were some eligibility laws, required legal identification, and additional considerations due to Aaliyah coming from Detroit. But the biggest hurdle was showing that Aaliyah was convincingly 18. Mm, mm, mm. With his team in tow, Kelly went back to the hotel and brought Aaliyah to the city's public aid office, where his assistant, Demetrius Smith, knew a friend who worked there, according to Hammett. The public aid office is now known as Illinois Department of Human Services. He writes, Demetrius Smith went ahead to begin negotiation. The wait was excruciating, but eventually Demetrius Smith returned and gave his boss the nod for a fee of $500. The public aid office servant agreed to fast track Aaliyah's photo ID. Mm, mm, mm. Pulling her hoodie over her head, Aaliyah ducked into the building via the back entrance, where she was greeted by a welcoming smile. It will be okay, the public servant muttered under her breath. Oh my God, this is crazy. Demetrius Smith wrote in his own book, The Man Behind the Man, Looking from the Inside Out, released in 2011, that the photo ID has her name and a birth date and a year that stated she was 18. He added, this was our first proof of identification, and it was an official state of Illinois ID. As they went around town picking up other forms of IDs, Kelly called in a favor with a friend who worked at FedEx, the book claims. The man agreed to say Aaliyah worked with him at FedEx, but only on the condition that he would remain anonymous if the plot unraveled, which Kelly promised he could keep his name a secret, Hammett writes. They went above and beyond to break the law. This is legally and morally wrong. Hammett explained to a media outlet that Kelly needed the employment record to add to the three forms of ID and show she was employed and a good fit. What is that? A good fit. Their marriage was kept under wraps until Vibe magazine obtained a copy of the certificate and published it in its December 1994/January 1995 issue. The couple's marriage was later annulled after a legal action by Aaliyah's parents in February 1995, who had no idea about the union at the time. Aaliyah herself filed a suit in Cook County in May 1997, seeking to have all records of the marriage expunged. Kelly's lawyer, Stephen Greenberg, claimed earlier this year that his client had no idea Aaliyah was underage at the time of their marriage. Lies. If he didn't know that she was underage at the time, what was the point in running around town, taking flights from one city to the next, calling all these people in on it to get a fake ID made? R. Kelly's attorney from his first trial told us earlier this year that R. Kelly was guilty as hell in that trial. We knew that. You see, I'm still stuck on the first trial. I haven't gotten too much into the trials that's coming up, because my thing is, he was guilty when he was acquitted. But the record label protected him. His lawyers protected him. They helped him get away with his hypophilia behavior with these young girls because they wasn't done with R. Kelly at the time. He was still bringing them in millions and billions of dollars, so they needed him. They wasn't willing to let him go, but what they did was they kept all this stuff on record because they knew that the day would come that they were going to need it, and that day has come because right now he's washed up to them. R. Kelly hasn't had a hit record in years. He's tied up in all kind of legal fees. The record label dropped him. His residuals are tied up. They knew that he will do this again. And that's why he's going through what he's going through, because R. Kelly is a repeat offender. Pedophiles, epiphilias, rapists, child molesters cannot be rehabilitated. R. Kelly has been doing this for 30 years. If he wanted help, he could have been got it. If he wanted to stop, he would have been stopped. 30 years. That's a repeat offender. A revised indictment from federal court in Brooklyn accused Kelly of paying a bribe to Illinois government employee in order to obtain the fraudulent identification document for someone identified as Jane Doe on August 30th, 1994. The United States Attorney's Office has declined to comment about who the fake ID was meant for, and the indictment didn't mention the wedding, but a person familiar with the investigation has confirmed that Jane Doe is in fact Aaliyah. The new charges mark the first time that Kelly's brief marriage to Aaliyah has been connected to any of the criminal cases against Kelly. His attorneys have called the charges baseless. Brooklyn prosecutors have already charged him with racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, and sexual exploitation. They alleged he and his employees and assistants picked out women and girls at concerts and groomed them for sexual abuse. Multiple women have come forward to accuse Kelly of keeping them as sex slaves, claiming he controlled what they ate, where where sorry about that, when they went to the bathroom, and subjected them to sexual abuse while they were involved with him. These ads keep popping up. Kelly is currently being held without bond in Chicago, where he's been since July. He's scheduled to stand trial in the city's federal court in May on child pornography and obstruction of justice. He also has a state case which alleges 10 counts of sexual abuse, which Illinois prosecutors filed in March last year. Kelly then will stand trial in New York on the racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, and sexual exploitation. He also has a case in Minnesota this August for allegedly having sex with an underage prostitute. Underage prostitute. Underage prostitute. What? Kelly was acquitted in 2008 on charges of videotaping himself having sex with a girl who prosecutors allege was 13 at the time. And let me say this. I don't know how old or that first videotape was once his first trial started. And the reason I say this is because when his first trial started, it was reported that Rashana Lanford, the PP girl, she was 23 years old. So she couldn't have been 13 or 14 years old in the tape unless it was made years before the tape was actually discovered. Because the trial was supposed to start in 2002, but it didn't start until 2008. So if it did start in 2002 and it was discovered that year or whenever it was discovered, she was 16 going on 17 or 17 going on 18. She had to be. Unless the tape was made years before. That's what I'm thinking. The tape was made years before it was actually discovered. Child, I don't know. The whole thing is just a mess. This is the biggest scandal of all times since the OJ trial and the Trayvon Martin trial. This stuff R. Kelly got going on is crazy, and people are continuing to expose him. And let me say this. People have to learn to agree to disagree, because some people in their right mind actually know that R. Kelly is guilty of most of this stuff that he's being accused of. And it is what it is. And the people that think he's innocent and his fans and supporters, those people are entitled to their opinions just as well as the people who think he's guilty. So people just have to learn to agree to disagree. It is what it is. There is no need to be going on people's channel and attacking them because you don't agree with them. If you don't agree with a person's content, go to a channel that appeases you. Because I have made myself very clear on my channel. In this R. Kelly scandal, everybody guilty. R. Kelly, the enablers, the girls, the parents, the assistants, the ex-wife, everybody who's involved in this R. Kelly situation over here on this channel is guilty.